Come see us on tour in Los Angeles, Honolulu, Dallas, Texas, Baltimore, Atlantic City, Cohoes, New York, and Providence, Rhode Island. Go to jimmydore.com for a link for tickets, and only there. I don't know if you saw this. Stephen Colbert cuts off Claire Danes before she... Now, this is, I think, from 2018 when Trump was president.
Oh, this was way before that. I told you my friend who used to be the editor over at Daily Beast and Jezebel and whatnot, she told me right when Obama was going out, she'd been invited to the White House. Okay. All these young reporters, they were invited to some White House thing. And Obama told them, hey, I'm really worried that Trump is compromised by Russia. I just wanted to tell you. So I didn't think anything of it at the time. I go, whatever. Now I see what it is. So they've been entrenching themselves. And that's what Claire Danes is speaking about.
So Claire Danes was on with Stephen Colbert when Trump was president. And she talks about the intelligence community, meaning the CIA, allying itself with legacy media during Trump's first term. Watch Stephen Colbert. Now, we all know that he's the tool of all tools.
Did you know he's an asset to this degree?
Yeah, he's an asset. I didn't know he was an asset to this degree.
Yeah. I should have put together with the Jon Stewart cutoff. Whoopi's trained to fart over a point, and he just stops it.
Watch this.
Okay, so now one of the things that you do you do this every season where you go get to spend some time with some actual spies?
We do. It's like the cool.
So they go to spend a whole week with CIA spies.
Yeah, it's so cool.
What? Why would you? What?
It's part of my
like
job.
a Marvel movie.
Sets that up. Okay, so now one of the things that you do you do this every season where you go get to spend some time with some actual spies?
We do. It's like the coolest part of my job.
Who sets that up? Who calls the CIA and goes, we just like to come in and hang out with you guys?
Yeah, so Henry Burmell, who was one of our founding fathers of Homeland, one of our writers, passed away a number of years ago, but his dad was in the...
As if Stephen Colbert doesn't have a CIA handler, and as if he doesn't know that there are CIA embedded all through Hollywood. As if he doesn't know this. How do you set that up? How do you get a hold of the CIA? Yeah. No, they've already gotten a hold of them.
They downloaded the information right in Stephen's throat before the show.
CIA, and his cousin was a mentee of his father's and was also in the CIA, very accomplished.
That's weird.
Oh my God. That is, okay, the enormity of what she just said.
Right. It's one long CIA.
That means that this is one of the worst. Listen. Oh my God, that's really bad.
Yeah,
I didn't even notice that the first time.
Was a mentee of his father's and was also in the CIA, a very accomplished person there. And he recently retired. But in his retirement, he curates this week-long spy camp for us producers and writers. And
the producers and writers of the Homeland show at these guys who were CIA their whole life, they bring us to spy camp.
He's a mentee.
What could possibly be the nefarious reason for them to do that? It's just for shits and giggles.
Well, Jimmy, that's generational CIA. So that means he's the mentee of people who were doing the original MK Ultra.
Yes.
That means he was trained by the original evil fuckers they pretend aren't what they are now.
Right. Watch this.
Really?
Yeah.
Is it like, you know?
So we park ourselves in a club in Georgetown and talk to like real spooks. And, you know, people in the intelligence community.
I just love watching Stephen Colbert pretending to be interested in what it's like to be hanging out with CIA agents when that's all he does as soon as the show is over.
Yeah, he put in cold storage.
Really? What is this all about now, CIA?
Yeah, after the show, they changed.
Real spooks. And, you know, people in the intelligence community and the State Department and journalists and people who really...
What do they tell you that, like, what's the most surprising?
Journalists, State Department people, CIA spooks.
Yeah.
And writers for television shows, producers for television shows.
Yeah.
They all come together. Isn't that weird?
Yeah. So, you know, when like conspiracy or UFO nuts, they'll say they disclose stuff in fiction. I don't think it's that they're disclosing stuff. They're feeding stuff into the fiction for predictive programming, meaning getting you primed for the stuff that they want to do. So when you watch, like, here's an example, that stupid Marvel Black Panther movie with the good guy CIA agent who just wants to help this African country join the world stage. There's the underlying propaganda in that, and that's to prime you to think it's good when these absolute depraved satanic fucks go steal shit from other countries.
So let's watch.
Thing that they've told you about their jobs or something you would need to know from
Well,
there?
every year it's different, right? We've been at it for a while, and the climate has changed. But this year it was all about, the distrust between the administration and the intelligence world, and the intelligence community was suddenly kind of allying itself with journalists, which usually they're.
Whoa! The intelligence community, she's now letting the cat out of the bag, and Stephen Colbert panics. He panics.
Yeah.
And
Why?
He's panicking because he's been told not to let that out. And he uses a technique called whoopee farting.
I think that he's been put in the awkward position of being a handler, and he's a program puppet himself, so it's awkward for him to have to be the handler for this other puppet. I'll bet you both of them. I'll bet good Dogecoin. Both of them.
So what? Let's go ahead. What? Both of them what?
They have taser scars from the program somewhere in their body.
So this could not be. This should be a huge story. Should have been a huge story when it happened. I just saw it on Twitter the other day. This should make your hair stand on end.
And
look how blank she is.
Watch this.
And the intelligence world, and the intelligence community was suddenly kind of allying itself with journalists, which usually they're not.
How long ago did you start shooting this?
Look how
she goes. She goes. The intelligence community started allying itself with journalists. She goes, how long? When did you start shooting this? Stop talking. That is unbelievable.
Yeah, she's probably punished hard for that.
And watch, watch his body language. I want you to watch his body language. Watch his body language.
Usually they're
How long ago did you start shooting this season?
How long ago did you start shooting this? Why is this? You see that? How long ago? Oh!
This is worse than Jon Stewart saying the virus is made in a lab, which it definitely was.
You remember when Jon Stewart said he had to stop that.
Yeah.
Look at this.
The first time.
Oi!
Ixnay!
Here, let me play it without interruption. Let's watch the whole thing.
So now one of the things that you do you do this every season where you go get to spend some time with some actual spies?
We do. It's like the coolest part of my job.
Who sets that up? Who calls the CIA and goes, we just like to come in and hang out with you guys?
Yeah, so Henry Bromell, who was one of our founding fathers of Homeland, one of our writers, passed away a number of years ago, but his dad was in the CIA, and his cousin was a mentee of his father's and was also in the CIA, a very accomplished person there. And he recently retired, but in his retirement, he curates this week-long spy camp for us producers and writers. And
really?
Yeah.
Is it like, you know?
Yeah, so we park ourselves in a club in Georgetown and talk to, like, real spooks. And, people in the intelligence community and the State Department and journalists and people who really...
What do they tell you that, like, what's the most surprising thing that they've told you about their jobs or something you would need to know from
Well,
there?
every year it's different, right? We've been at it for a while, and the climate has changed. But this year it was all about...
The climate has changed, meaning Trump's president.
Oh, not the climate. It's not climate change. Oh, thank God.
The distrust between the administration and the intelligence world, and the intelligence community was suddenly kind of allying itself with journalists, which usually they're not.
How long ago did you start shooting this season?
I'm sorry.
So she says there's a distrust between the administration and the intelligence community, meaning the intelligence community's boss, the civilian elected leader of the military and the intelligence community, the civilian control it's in our Constitution, that's the part that there's a distrust between the people, the people that have been elected by the electorate, the citizens of the United States, to run the intelligence community and run the military. There's a distrust between them, and now the people who are elected by the civilians to run it are now the people they don't trust are now allying with journalists. And he's like, "Whoa, stop! Whoa!"
Yeah. Even this dipshit could see how bad that sounds.
Look at that. Look at that look. Look at that look.
Look at her.
And
But look at her brain dead face while she's. And then, look at her blurting out the secret with that look, like a malfunctioning piece of equipment, which is what she is.
So that's Stephen Colbert trying to stop an inconvenient truth that just popped up on his show.
Oh,
And he's doing a whoopee. He's doing a whoopee fart and waving his hand around.
Project Whoopee Fart, in effect.
AC caught this. You can see his body language immediately shift to, oh, shit.
Yeah, I love her body language of just a dingbat blathering nonsense. Well, a thing that they didn't program her to keep a secret. Look at her face. And then the CIA went and took over journalism.
So just so you know, what they're revealing here is that the president is not in charge.
That means you're not in charge and your vote don't count. That's what
all
means.
that means. That the president is not in charge and that the people who run our intelligence community and our military, they're the ones deciding what to do. And they get in bed with the media, the journalists, the TV shows, entertainment, Hollywood.
Community is a wrong word for them. They're a coven. The intelligence coven.
The intelligence coven.
Yes.
And here, thanks to our friend James Lee, he has how does this happen? How is the intelligence community legally allowed to propagandize Americans? Bobby Kennedy's going to let you know.
There's a provision in the CIA charter that says that the CIA cannot propagandize the American people. President Obama adopted in 2016 that essentially reopened the door for Operation Mockingbird so that the CIA began once again to propagandize American people.
How are they doing that, President?
High-level intelligence officials or people associated with the intelligence industry are running those journals, like Noah Schlackman, who runs Rolling Stone, who came from Daily Beast. Daily Beast was run by John Avalon, who has deep ties to the intelligence agencies. And even journals like Smithsonian and National Geographic, Nature, the Washington Post, the New York Times appear to be compromised by the CIA. We know from the Twitter files that both the FBI and CIA were operating portals within the Twitter and Facebook that allowed them to manipulate information and to deplatform people and to silence certain people that they didn't like in the social media. Operation Mockingbird was an operation to compromise American journalists. There were some 400 editors, journalists from all the largest publications. The New York Times had been compromised. The Washington Post was basically...
What do you mean by compromised? For people who
well, they were functioning. The high-level people at those journals were working for the agency or had signed secrecy agreements with the CIA. And at CBS, ABC, NBC, after '75, when it all came out during the Church Committee hearings, the CIA promised that it would no longer compromise American journalists. It continued the program to compromise journalists all over the world. And today, the CIA is the biggest funder of journalism in the world.
And how about present day?
They fund it through USAID. In that little twilight zone before you fall asleep every night, I'm thinking about what I'm going to do in the first weeks when I get into office about fixing these agencies, one at a time. That's something I'm excited about. If you like this video and you want...
So here, I first saw this, Max Blumenthal tweeted this out. This is a CIA agent letting you know exactly how they manipulate journalists.
Another thing is to disseminate propaganda to influence people's minds. And this is a major function of the CIA. And unfortunately, of course, it overlaps into the gathering of information. You have contact with a journalist. You will give him true stories, you'll get information from him, you'll also give him false stories.
But you do buy his confidence with true stories?
You buy his confidence and set him up. We've seen this happen recently with Jack Anderson, for example, who has his intelligence sources, and he has also admitted that he's been set up by them. every fifth story just simply being false. You also work on their human vulnerabilities to recruit them in a classic sense, to make them your agent so that you can control what they do, so you don't have to set them up sort of, by putting one over on them. So you can say, here, plant this one next Tuesday.
Can you do this with responsible reporters?
Yes, the Church Committee brought it out in 1975, and then Woodward and Bernstein put an article in Rolling Stone a couple of years later. 400 journalists cooperating with the CIA, including some of the biggest names in the business, to consciously introduce the stories into the press.
Walter Cronkite, definitely, because he's the Bohemian Grove narrator at their weird ceremony.
Oh, really?
All your faves are industry plants. And by industry, I mean military industry.
So here's one more. David Summers says, this makes me wonder how much Colbert himself was directly involved in coordinating these psyops. I remember when him, Seth Meyers, Trevor Noah, and John Oliver repeated almost verbatim Nancy Pelosi's talking points about the border crisis being caused by Trump, all on the same night. Yeah. Stephen Colbert is not so much James Bond as he is more Bond's medicated foot powder, because because now he's on the run. Okay. All right. Oh, that was quite. I can't. I don't think I'll ever get over this picture.
I mean, Colbert is blown away looking at her speech, and I love it. Look at her mid blurt. Look at her face.
Yes.
Your country's fake, everybody. Just so you know.
Stop immediately
she
starts to tell him that the CIA is working with journalists. And all of a sudden, he's like, "Hey, when did you start shooting?"
Yeah.
Let's totally get off.
Completely get off this topic while
Can I see it one more time?
Audience snaps too.
Steph wants to see it one more time.
Okay, so now one of the things that you do you do this every season where you go get to spend some time with some actual spies?
We do. It's like the coolest part of my job.
Who sets that up? Who calls the CIA and goes, we just like to come in and hang out with you guys?
Yeah, so Henry Bromell, who was one of our founding fathers of Homeland, one of our writers, passed away a number of years ago, but his dad was in the CIA, and his cousin was a mentee of his father's and was also in the CIA, a very accomplished person there. And he recently retired, but in his retirement, he curates this week-long spy camp for us producers and writers. And
really?
Yeah.
Is it like, you
know?
know?
So we park ourselves in a club in Georgetown and talk to, like, real spooks. And, you know, people in the intelligence community and the State Department and journalists and people who really...
What do they tell you that, like, what's the most surprising thing that they've told you about their jobs or something you would need to know from
Well, every year it's different, right? We've been at it for a while and the climate has changed. But this year it was all about, you know, the distrust between the administration and the intelligence world and the intelligence community was suddenly kind of allying itself with journalists, which usually they're not.
How long ago did you start shooting this season?
Wow.
And
I have to say,
suddenly they started allying themselves with journalists, which previously they had not.
Yeah. That story I'll never forget now because she said Obama said that. And I was like, oh, that's cool. You got to meet Obama. Didn't put together anything at the time. Then I realized what Obama's doing with this young crop of impressionable millennials. Daddy said he's worried about Russia. So don't worry, Obama. We wish you were still the president. We'll just you don't even have to let him in on the plan. Oh, my buddy Aaron, the lobbyist, has told me Claire Danes is Yale, which is a major CIA recruiting campus. So let me tell you what that says to me. She's a definite monarch, mind control person. Yale, CIA, 100%. Colbert's there in a handler capacity right now. So you're looking at a freeze frame of Project Monarch falling apart in front of your very eyes. Yeah.
All right.
We're going to start popping off more of these people.
Come see us on tour in Los Angeles, Honolulu, Dallas, Texas, Baltimore, Atlantic City, Cohoes, New York, and Providence, Rhode Island. Go to jimmydore.com for a link for tickets, and only there.